Ryot started in 2012. My partner David and I are both humanitarians working in Haiti, and we were really struck by this word. We were inspired by the word riot by Martin Luther King, who said that a riot is the language of the unheard. And that was important because we were seeing stories all over the world of people who hadn't had an opportunity to tell their own stories. And it just turned out that the spelling R-Y-O-T is also a Hindi word that means peasant. And so we liked this kind of dual meaning of both, representing somebody who historically has been voiceless, and then representing an act, which is a riot, which is, a way that people who don't have a voice can express themselves. I think a lot of people say that riot is disruptive. I think it's like an overused word, so I try to avoid disruptive when I can. We think that, at Riot, we link every story to an action, and we tell stories that can get people involved in what's happening in the world and hopefully activated rather than deactivated. And for so long, news and media has been about telling these terrible stories and people feeling hopeless. And what we're trying to do is connect people and have them feel like there's something they can do about it. So I don't know if that's disruptive. To us, it feels like that's normal. That's how media should be. That's how news should be. I think it's weird that news is still a one-way flow of information. Of just throwing the newspaper over the fence and saying, here's what's happening, read all about it, rather than, hey man, look at what's going on in the world. Let's see what we can do about it. Right now the world is connected through mobile phones and social media in a way that's never happened before. People from all cultures can talk to each other, communicate, whether it's, across geographic divides or economic divides. And so we're connected as people, but media still doesn't have that connection. So that's what we're hoping for. We want to try to use, new technology, virtual reality. We shoot on iPhones sometimes, GoPros. How do we use these technologies to bring people closer inside the story, which in the hopes of, maybe teaching a little bit of that, compassion, community. Riot tells stories with a multitude of technologies. We've been shooting a lot on iPhones, which is really part of kind of a conversation that we want to have around, now that media is sort of the distribution has been democratized with the camera on the back of everybody's phone. There's an opportunity to democratize storytelling, and so we've been shooting on iPhones, which we like. And then VR is sort of where I think the biggest part of our focus is. We have shooters all over the world with 360 cameras who are telling stories as they unfold. We're trying really hard to tell a 360 story a day, and so that's kind of our goal and how we've been pushing it. I think a lot of people are looking at VR and they're asking, isn't this the same as what happened with 3D? There are huge distinctions, though. The 3D was a real hardware thing. You had to have this television, you had to have these glasses, and then people had to make content for it. And really, it was specific to content you could see on that television. The applications for VR are so wide-ranging, right? It's not only video games or films or documentaries or news. You also have medical, education, real estate, tourism, and I think that the big breakthrough with VR was really as it moved into 360 video, which meant that you now had all of these platforms that showed up that could support 360 video. Facebook 360, YouTube 360, Hulu now, AOL, and Apple TV now is 360. So that's a big distinction. I think that there's a misconception that everything is just in these kind of like geeky, VR headsets, which are limited to people who can afford those. But we're fighting really hard to make sure that it's really a mobile-first technology. So cardboard is what excites us. Look, I think that the hardware has a long way to go, especially because of the resolution on screens, right? So whether you're looking at this on a mobile phone, you're still not able to show it in 4K, but you will be, right? The technology is going to get there, so it's better. There are people out there who are making big VR experiences that I think are knockouts. If you're looking at some of the incredible content on the HTC Vive that's coming out, it's extraordinary. But what we see as a company is that video had a platform shift. Whether it's the platform shift that everybody's excited about, it's a platform shift. The way that we consume video on a mobile phone has changed. And so that's exciting. And we want to push as hard as we can and make as much as content as we can all over the world to see what happens there. And maybe in blazing that trail, we help create a new language, or we help, usher in a new era with news, or maybe it failed. But there's an organization, my group, is 30 people who are hungry to try to create a new language and a new genre with this. So for them, they're encouraged by it. And I think that the risk always in new technology is that you fail. But if the success outweighs that fear of failure, then it's worth it. What we're excited about with VR is that as that technology becomes cheaper and easier and self-stitching, and then it gets into people's hands, and hopefully then you also democratize who can make content, right? I mean, that's what's exciting about pushing people to be shooting on iPhones, is that every single person here at this conference in their pocket has a camera with a phone that has a computer in it that's powerful enough that they can make a film on their own, or they can make a record on their own, or they can take a beautiful picture that can show up on a billboard. Like, that's amazing, right? And so our hope is that in doing this, we're not saying, oh, well, now there's going to be a lot of really crappy movies or crappy VR, but rather like, let's improve the industry by having voices of people, filmmakers, creators who never had the chance to, have their work out there before. As you know, it was hard to make a movie when you were shooting on film. It was hard to make a movie when you were shooting on beta. It was hard to make a movie when you were shooting, even on the digicams. Like, they were expensive cameras to shoot with. Even the Canon, 5D, it's an expensive camera. So a lot of people couldn't afford that. But, when an iPhone becomes 4K or a GoPro becomes 4K, it hopefully puts the barrier of entry down. And maybe there's a flood of really crappy content, but also within that, there's a whole new crop of filmmakers out there, and that's what's exciting. And that's what's exciting about the rest of the world getting connected on the internet and getting connected through these smartphones. Is it's not like how the internet is going to improve their lives, but how they're going to improve the internet for all of us by being a part of it. At Ryot, every single one of our stories has an action. We end up using that action to connect to nonprofits who are doing great work on the ground. Some of those cases, they end up raising a lot of money, which is terrific. We made a film this year that was nominated for an Oscar called Body Team 12 about the Ebola crisis. We ended up raising a lot of money for projects on the ground that are taking care of orphans of people who had died, of parents who had died and left their children behind. So that's a success story, I think, in the terms of that you can make a film, you can get it seen by people, and you can get it out there, and hopefully in that, not for people to be depressed about the horrors of Ebola, but rather they say, okay, I want to be a part of the solution, and give $20, give $10, give $5, give $100, and I'm an optimist about that. I think it makes a difference. I think one of the most exciting things that happened to VR was when GoPro got in the game, right? It meant that you didn't have these kind of big, crazy cameras that were really expensive and hard to use and hard to fix, and they had camera operators. It meant that anybody could go shoot because we all know how to fix GoPros. And so if you got to fix one, or if you need to change the battery, or if you have to change a lens, like, you can do that in the field. So that was really the first breakthrough. I think what they're working on in the next phase is really exciting. I think it's going to be a real game changer, and you're just going to see more and more cameras that are coming out that makes the stitching easier, that makes the post-production easier, and eventually there will be that camera solution, I think, in the next year that's, stereoscopic, self-stitching, handheld, small little camera, and that'll be the game changer. In our post-production facilities at Ryot, we have an incredible group of people who do everything. So our shooters stitch, and our stitchers shoot, and our editors stitch, and they all shoot. And our head of post-production, it's really important that everybody knows all those, because actually the stitching process is really hard when you have somebody shoot the content who doesn't know how to do it. And so that becomes a really difficult thing. But if you know where to put the camera, how far away, where the rest of the room is, I mean, you have to know all those things when you shoot. The process isn't actually that hard. I mean, it takes some time, but we're a school of documentary filmmakers, and really poor documentary filmmakers who have never shot just a ton of content and then had to put it together in post. We're economical in that way, right? We shoot what we need to shoot, and then we know kind of the story as we put that together. So that's how we're able to kind of keep these things turning around really fast. We were in Cuba when Obama was there, and we were turning them around every day, even from Cuba, which was a real challenge just to send files from there. So you need a team that's really excited about it, and you need to know what you're shooting when you get out there. But if you do that, then you can have that system that works.